All right, guys, we're going to do the second reading here, the Tuesday reading for the five people you meet in heaven, which is going to start on page 85. It's going to go to 92. All right, and what we're going to do now is we're going to set up and get into. Excuse me, let me move my camera here. Get set up and get into the fourth person Eddie's going to meet in heaven, which I've already told you is his wife. All right, so we start off though again with a Thursday 11 a.m. Piece, and this is again takes us back to modern times after Eddie's death. So we say it starts off with who would pay for Eddie's funeral. He had no relatives, he left no instructions. His body remained at the city morgue, as did his clothes and personal effects. His maintenance shirt, his socks and shoes, his linen cap, his wedding ring, his cigarettes and pipe cleaners, all awaiting claim. It says, in the end, Mr. Bullock, the park owner, footed the bill, using the money he saved from Eddie's no longer cashable paycheck. The casket was a wooden box. The church was chosen by a location, the one nearest the pier. This is kind of a sad ending for this guy. I mean, it feels like no one's around that cares about him. All of his stuff goes to nothing. And, he's paid for with a funeral that was just one of his paychecks and buried in a pine box at the closest church they could find. Even when they asked for the funeral, they asked Dominguez, who he worked with, some of his special qualities. And basically all he comes up with is, well, he really loved his wife. And that kind of sets the stage for, as we start, the fourth person Eddie meets in heaven, and it's going to be his wife. Now, as I started this video, I did not do what I normally do, which is read over the section, so I kind of know. So y'all have to forgive me as I kind of maybe stumble through and skim things a little bit. I promise that won't happen again. I just rolled right. I'm doing like 5 things at once right now, and I just forgot. But it's okay. We can still do it this way. So Eddie finds himself in basically a weird, empty room, and he just starts, thinking. And one of the things Ruby pointed out to him before, let me go back to that part. This was from yesterday. Where does she say it? She points out that he has 2 people still to meet. And it's something about, I don't remember. He asks a question about something, and she points out there's still more to meet. In other words, you're not done learning your lessons yet. There's more to come, all right? So he finds out he's now in a wedding hall, and he goes to every door he goes through, there's a wedding going on. Really weird. Like I said, this one kind of is an odd one to me. There's a lot of description here as he sets up that he's going into all of these weddings, and basically that's what's going on. Everywhere he goes, another wedding, another wedding. I'm skipping to the end of that, all right? So this may be a really short video because I'm picking up now on 88. A lot of description. Don't skip it, okay? It's very pretty. And one of the things, the point here is not just to see what the story is about, but it's also to look at some good writing and see how imagery is done. So that, when I have you in 11th or 12th grade, and if we write something that I require you to have some sort of imagery-based stuff in, you want to write like Mitch Albom does, all right? So we get another today is Eddie's birthday section. Let's see, what do we got going on in this one? Eddie and his brother Joe are discussing each other, and Joe's basically talking about his life and his new salary and how much money he's making, which we find out is about 3 times what Eddie made. And Joe congratulates Eddie on his promotion to head of maintenance for the pier, which is the same job his dad had. You got to think about Eddie's mentality as he sees that. It's great. My brother is living the life he wanted to live. He's making all this money. He's got this great life, and I'm my dad. And there's probably some resentment. Why is my brother not in this position? Why do I have to do it? Why couldn't I follow my dreams? So we just see this like tender scene of a birthday. Eddie's got a little bit of disappointment. But what we get from this scene really is that despite his disappointment with his life, Eddie's not disappointed with his wife. He loves her. This is the thing in his life that makes everything work for him. Now, Eddie and her don't have kids. We're going to find out more about that in a minute. But, his life is this woman. And everything about her is the only thing he enjoys about his life. And that's what this is Eddie's birthday is supposed to show. We see all the resentment. We see all the disappointment in his life. But then when we see him with her, we realize he still is very much so in love with this woman. And it's what makes this function for him, okay? All right. But then he meets his fourth person, and he realizes it's her. This is at the bottom of page 90. He says, "It's not you," he said. She lowered her almond basket. She smiled sadly. The tarantella was dancing behind him, and the sun was fading behind a ribbon of white clouds. "It's not you," Eddie said again. And he keeps saying, "It's not you," and then she says, "It is me." And he's so excited to see her. He just kind of comes up and embraces her. Um, they talk about their wedding. Their wedding is like most of Eddie's life. It's very simple. They had it at it says look, the second floor of a dimly lit Chinese restaurant. So think about that. Think about how many of your dream wedding is to be on the second floor of a restaurant somewhere. Just kind of side thought there. Um, he rents it basically for a little bit of time. It says Eddie took what cash he had left from the army and spent it on the reception: roast chicken and Chinese vegetables and port wine and a man with an accordion. The chairs for the ceremony were needed for the dinner, so once the vows were taken, the waiters asked the guests to rise and carry the chairs downstairs to the tables. So think about that. You don't even get to sit down at your wedding because those chairs are needed in the business below. Um, it's this, but it's such a pretty sight too. It's as cheap as it may sound, like they're really not having a really important wedding, you can still tell that there's some love there, and it's kind of in a way a really pretty scene. I mean, I could see this in a movie. This would be a really neat scene for just a person who we don't have much. We're going to make do with what we have. So almost at the end of today's reading, and we got very little time into this, and I told you this section is not, it drags a little for me, but it's still well done. I mean, it drags compared to the rest, not because it's bad. So people say they find love, and we're at the bottom of 91. People say they find love as if it were an object hidden by a rock, but love takes many forms, and it is never the same for any man and woman. What people find then is a certain love, and Eddie found a certain love with Marguerite, a grateful love, a deep but quiet love, one that he knew above all else was irreplaceable. Once she had gone, he'd let the days go stale. He put his heart to sleep. So a really important paragraph, probably in this section we're reading today, maybe the most important. We find out part of what made Eddie so hard. It wasn't just his dad and all the stuff he went through. Eddie's had a rough life. He's went through the problems he had. POW, had his knee ruined, had to watch one of his best friends killed. What he went through with his dad being abusive, losing his mom. Then he ends up, and we're going to find out about what happened with him and Marguerite, but he loses her. And when that happens, he just shuts down. Which is really common for a lot of people. It's one of the benefits of having children is that when you do lose your spouse, you've still got that connection. But Eddie doesn't. It's like his wife dies and he's alone again, and that's really tough on him. And she's looking at his leg again, and it's just that reminder that as Eddie's gone to each of these, it's chronological. He starts at his youngest and moves on and on and on. So now he's getting to. Although I do want to point something out to you, the fifth one is going to break that a little bit because the fifth person is not chronologically in the right order, but it has to go that way. All right. And I'm not going to spoil that for you. We're going to see who the fifth one was in a little bit. All right. I like the fact that the fourth person Eddie meets is the most important person in his life, and so it kind of looks like, well, the fifth person is going to be an anticlimactic. It's not. It's really, really interesting how Mitch Albom plans this out. Excuse me. So, Marguerite, sorry, I forgot her name for a minute, is explaining why she chose the place she's waiting for Eddie. All weddings, she said happily, that was my choice. A world of weddings behind every door. Oh, Eddie, it never changes. When the groom lifts the veil, when the bride accepts the ring, the possibilities you see in their eyes, it's the same around the world. They truly believe their love and their marriage is going to break all the records. She smiled. Do you think we had that? Eddie didn't know how to answer. We had an accordion player, he said. So, Eddie's got guilt towards what's happened in his relationship with his wife, and we're going to see why in a minute, or tomorrow maybe. But it's interesting that she picked a world of weddings. That there's something between the lines you should pick up there. The fact is that she really loves Eddie too, because if she didn't, she would not want a reminder of marrying this guy, but she does. She's in a world of weddings, not just because of the things she sees in the eyes of the bride and groom, but because she remembers how she was that day. So we see between these two is a legitimate, real love, okay? Let me check where we were supposed to end. I don't want to go too far or not far enough. We were supposed to stop on page 92 at the bottom of the page. So let's go a little further. We're almost there, all right? So this last little section, and I'm going to read this whole part to you. It's just half a page. It says, they walked from the reception and up the gravel path. The music faded to the background noise. Eddie wanted to tell her everything he had seen, everything that had happened. He wanted to ask her about every little thing and every big thing, too. He felt a churning inside him, a stop-start anxiety. He had no idea where to begin. You did this, too, he finally said. You met 5 people? She nodded. A different 5 people, he said. She nodded again. And they explained everything, and it made a difference. She smiled, all the difference. She touched his chin. And then I waited for you. He studied her eyes, her smile. He wondered if her waiting had felt like this. How much do you know about me? I mean, how much do you know since he still had trouble saying it? Okay, there's one of those cliffhangers. Most of you, I think, who are actually reading this and are enjoying it, kept reading. You didn't stop. Like, this is the end of today's reading. I'm going to stop here. You probably kept going because you want to know what happened. Now, some of you may not. I know I did. Like I said when we started, I read this book in 2 days. I could have done it in one. I actually, when I've reread it a couple of times, I have done it in one. And it's just because it's such a powerful book, even knowing what's going to happen. But that ends today's reading. And normally we go about 20, 25 minutes. We were done in 11 today, but it's because so much of this was set up. Trust me, I'll make up the time as we move into these last few sections, all right? So we still have to figure out what has happened with Eddie and his wife. We don't really we have very little information up to now. That's not accidental. If Mitch Albom was writing this book differently, he might have given us a lot of information about Eddie and his wife. It would have done a lot for the exposition to set up these characters early, but he's saving it for here because he wants that mystery of what happened, all right? Okay, so that gets us through page 92. We've got about 22 pages left in the whole book, and then we'll be done. So we're going to stop here, and this will get you through the Tuesday questions, and then we'll reset and get ready to do the Wednesday ones. All right. Thank you for your time, guys. I appreciate you all.